Services Commission meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Charlene Daniels.
I have Charlene is present, Jennifer is present, and Mary is present.
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, we are recording. We are good to go.
Okay. Do we have a motion on the minutes for April 24th and 28th and the minutes for May 9th, 2019 were distributed for review? Do we have a motion on the minutes for April 24th, 2018 and the minutes of May 19th, 2019?
Motion to approve.
Go ahead and read the motion.
Where'd it go? There it is. I move that the minutes of April 24th, May 9th be approved. It was only two?
There's only two.
Okay, because there was three on the other list.
I didn't get them done.
Okay.
All right. Jennifer, do you second?
I second.
Thank you.
Okay, and this is the purpose for our getting together today. We, in a former meeting, had gone through the roles, duties, and responsibilities of the commission. That was on our agenda. However, it did not, we didn't have time to really go through it. So today, I hope that the majority of our meeting will be spent just going through what our purpose is for the Health and Human Services Commission in the city of Apache Junction, what our roles are, our duties, what our responsibilities are. And I have to say that this community is by far ahead of many other communities that do not have a Health and Human Services Commission. I think we are one of few. It's hard to look around and see many communities that actually have a Health and Human Services Commission. So, kudos. So included in our packet was City Code 211, the Health and Human Services Commission information that included the duties of the commission, which are 2-11-5 and 2-14, which are the requirements from the nonprofits for funding. And we'll take a look at both of those. But I'd first like to just read through. There are 5 duties that we have as a commission. And to my knowledge, we've not been performing those 5 functions. We've really been focusing mostly on the third one.
The appropriations of the funding to,
Yes.
yeah, our nonprofits.
Yes. So the first one is to conduct public hearings to determine the needs of city residents with regard to public health needs, provision of human services and care of the elderly, handicapped, and developmentally disabled. The second is to enhance the development of the public health through public forums, seminars, and work with other agencies. And this is the one that we've actually been doing on a regular basis, to review requests submitted by Health and Human Service providers, nonprofit agencies for city funding, and to make recommendations to the council regarding that funding. The fourth task is to assist in the development of healthcare facilities, and the fifth task is to make recommendations to the council regarding elderly health care and emergency transportation programs.
So if I can speak on those, where this all came about, I am still trying to figure that out. And when it says to assist in the development of healthcare facilities, I am not familiar with what the direction was supposed to go, where it was supposed to go. So the city attorney and I are looking at the original ordinance that formed the commission and trying to work through it on a couple of different matters. One would be the word of the grant that should come out, because this is not a grant, it is a contract. The other is to look at the proof of residency. Another was the auditing and reporting forms that they are required to submit. if you're a brand-new nonprofit and you're looking to start, which is what these appropriations were to do, is to start you off or to find some programs to help the community, you will not have any reports. So
Right.
we are working on that, and so I cannot answer to some of these. I just don't have the answers to what the initial thought was.
And that's another reason why I've been on the commission for 3 years. And when I interviewed the previous commissioners before I actually came on the commission, I asked them, how they were addressing these issues, and I was told that they weren't.
They weren't.
So I think what I really would like us to do as a commission is to really work with the city council in identifying which of these really are pertinent in today's world, and how can we, as a commission, really be of assistance to the city council and to the city in health and human services areas.
Okay.
We have a group of 5 commissioners, and all of which have very diverse backgrounds, which I believe can be very beneficial in taking some of the burden off of the city council in making decisions related to health and human services, if we were to be more involved in actually doing this or doing whatever is deemed to be
Appropriate for the community.
appropriate in today's world.
Yeah.
Exactly. So,
Can Jennifer hear you?
Jennifer, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. I totally agree, Mary. I think if we can get some better clarification, I think then we could really figure out where we'd like to go as a commission. And this is very exciting. I think that's really interesting that we are one of the few communities that actually have this commission. So if we can direct our work to be meaningful for our community, I think that would make huge strides for us.
Agreed. So I think I want to keep this meeting not really long, but I do want us to maybe take a little bit of time to walk through these just kind of a gross overview of the tasks and look at some possible outreach areas. So when it says determine the needs of the residents, it mentions public hearings, but what about surveys, focus groups, other methods? Are community agencies interested in partnering with this endeavor? What else is going on in the community? How else is the city getting feedback on the needs of the residents? Do you have, either of you have ideas or questions as well?
I actually do, as this is Jennifer. I'm thinking, do you think if we could possibly, once we have better clarification, and I like the idea of, possibly, surveys, focus groups, but maybe moving forward with our grantees and helping them move forward or sort of keep a touchstone as to where they are throughout the year. I think that could be invaluable. I could think it could help us drive our focus because, as we know, the individuals that we did award money to were all worthy causes, up-and-coming issues that needed attention. And I think if we could pinpoint our role and what we can determine as really community needs here, I think the commission could really move forward with engaging the community as a whole, and that would be really exciting for us.
Even participating in city events, having a small booth, you know, to take surveys or get feedback and start gathering it.
Right. So, you may need to
There's
a little closer.
button.
Oh,
It's
Oh,
on.
she is on.
It's on.
She is
Yeah.
on.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's on.
Yeah.
I
I'm
just
not
don't
sure Jen
project
can
real well,
hear you.
sorry.
Jennifer, did you hear her?
did you hear
Oh,
what Charlene said?
parts of it.
Do you want to repeat it, Charlie?
Okay, yeah, I was just talking about going to city events, you know, public events that we have, and maybe even just gathering information from attendees as to what they think, you know, we should be doing, or what, any needs that they might see, that we can start gathering information just from the general public at city events that we hold already.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a very good idea, because really, I think it would be invaluable to have the face of the Health and Human Services Commissions, you know, along with the names, but get out there, have people, you know who we are, you know, great things happen at grassroots levels.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And one thing I read the 2020 general plan, which was published not that long ago, I think.
It's out on the web,
It's out on the web.
about an inch and a half thick.
Yeah, I didn't print it out. But in reading it, you know, how the plan was developed, as I was reading how the plan was developed, they did seek feedback from the community, and they had surveys, and they had some feedback from residents. And one of the things that the residents said, and I'll quote this, it's on page 13 of the plan on how the plan was developed. It says, concerns regarding the homeless population and at-risk community was also expressed in the comment section of the survey. Residents would like to see additional community resources to help these groups of people. Residents conveyed the necessity of housing, emergency shelters, and workforce programs to help alleviate these social issues. So, and that's not anything that's on the Health and Human Services,
No, Heather Patel,
and she is the homeless outreach coordinator, but I think there could potentially be a partnership between her and looking at, because at-risk populations may include elderly who are ill,
yes.
or who have declining health, who are having problems with housing, who may also end up potentially out on the streets.
Yes.
And that would be in our purview. So I think there are agencies that we need to really, within the government, you know, within the city government, that we can possibly be maybe partnering with as well. Okay, any additional thoughts on determining the needs of residents? Okay, I think, again, you know, this is just going to be quick. We'll revisit this as we meet in the future. The second one was enhance public health through forums, seminars, and working with other agencies. And I think we touched a little bit on that in just identifying needs through being out in the community. A forum is a place for discussion involving like a panel of presenters, often participation by audience. A seminar is a meeting held for exchange of useful information. So, you know, I kind of wondered why you had both. Both were listed, but they're different types of ways of getting information out to the public. And
True. Within a public forum, we can have a conversation back and forth with the public. It is not as formal as a commission meeting. And then a seminar would be more of an educational aspect to a group of individuals. And again, we could use community partners to hold a session
right.
to provide information. So it would be more of a one-way communication rather than a partnership between, and that would come from the forum.
Okay, and then working with other agencies, you know, and we need to, as a commission, look at, well, what other agencies would he potentially work with in getting the information out?
So the other agencies, we'd have to see what we do have in the community. We do have, a hospital. We do have the Chamber of Commerce. So we do have several entities here that we could partner with.
Mhm.
Again, I would probably reach out to Heather Patel, since she is more familiar with this aspect of outreach than I'm familiar with as far as just the appropriation funding.
Okay. And again, looking at the general plan, the 2020 general plan, I looked at the AJ Parks and Recreational general plan, and, they have a lot of things going on that really are promoting the health and well-being of residents. And I really applaud what they're doing with Parks and Rec. And one of the statements, it's the intent of this element to advocate for an overall healthy community through access to parks, recreational facilities, trails, and active neighborhood designs. These efforts will help create a dynamic community while reducing health problems such as obesity, heart disease, and asthma. And I think that as a statement going forward at the beginning of their plan really they're looking at the health and well-being of our public. And if they were to, have any questions as far as some of the talents and abilities within the commission, we would be possibly able to work with them as well.
I believe they have, they're open real early in the morning, and sometimes the malls would open up early before any of the stores, and people would walk the mall. I mean, they had a walking pattern, and I think they have that up at the Multi-Gen Center as well. So maybe a little more outreach from Park and Rec related to the Health and Human Services Commission would be a good partner.
Yes, yes. Okay, thank you. The third one is the funding process, the Health and Human Services Commission funding process, and the intent of funding, I think initially was as a startup rather than ongoing funding. And, I'm thinking as we meet, we may need to look at how can we improve the efficiency of an application process. And I know Jennifer Pena, you are looking at that in trying to make it easier for smaller agencies to be able to apply. And, some of the requirements in the current funding process may be difficult for some nonprofits to provide. And, Article 214, request for financial assistance, and 214.1, nonprofit funding and request for financial assistance are the ones that we are able to work with that guide that process. And right now, it's kind of a confusing thing.
It is. It is.
So, and
they did change the requirements, but it still needs to, we still need to revamp it and go more towards even getting additional services within the city.
Again, I would have to meet with the city attorney on the purpose of the commission and what it would be allowed to do under statute as far as funding things and its outreach programs. So I'm going to rely a lot on his extreme knowledge of reciting the statute at any time.
Yeah.
right. And one of the things that we do have a number of nonprofits within our community, but, there are some needs that specifically require, or if we can get nonprofits that would be willing to look at specific needs. There was one of the staff members I know was looking into what is the value of having nonprofits in our community, and I don't know if it would be okay to quote there was I think it was a report of 4 mayors in Flagstaff, Yuma, Tucson, and Phoenix. That spoke to the attractiveness of nonprofit services to residents. And that report, it spoke to me too. And the mayors were quoted as saying, in our communities, nonprofits are problem solvers, innovators, job creators, trusted advisors, major employers, and revenue generators. More than that, they are the connectors, links, and leaders that make our towns and cities true communities. So we really rely on nonprofits to provide the services and to help our residents to have a quality of life. So just wanted to make that comment as
nice.
you know, a part of having our outreach or having the commission work with the nonprofits and funding nonprofits in projects that they have that would meet the needs of our residents.
Yeah.
Okay, the fourth one was, and again, I have questions about this one too, development of healthcare facilities, unless it's just being an advisory group. That's what I would foresee, an advisory group that could maybe help in that process if they're, you know, I'm looking at, well, you know, what is the need and how is the city looking at identifying what the current needs are, what the projected needs are down the road 10, 15, 20 years.
And to me, that comes more from a health organization.
Mm-hmm.
That is definitely not the role of a municipality.
Right.
So I would have to figure out what was meant by that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have a question. This is Jennifer. When was this commission started? When did we create this commission?
I don't know.
I think that's a good question, because if we have more of a timeline, I think it may help us understand why some of these things are in here. But as we move forward, as Mary had said, we need to think about what we can do as a commission that's applicable today in Apache Junction.
If I'm not mistaken, one of the first ordinances that was adopted was back in 1988.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I know Rob.
Thank
So
you.
the commission would have been formed slightly before that ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then the ordinance would have set the parameters for the nonprofits.
Okay, perfect.
So
Thank
I'm
you.
going to assume that the commission was formed back in 1988, and then the rest of the documentation as far as reporting, residency, and things like that came through the ordinance.
Okay,
Because
thank you.
You're welcome. I have not found too many ordinances related to commissions. There usually aren't. They're usually formed, and then the goals and objectives are set, the duties, the vacancies, and things like that. And then once they're formed, that's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm. But in looking at the healthcare needs, that's, I think we can kind of go back to the first task is just identifying the needs of residents.
Community. I think that is a big priority.
Mm-hmm.
Is figuring out what our community needs, because maybe we did not have as many nonprofits back in '88 that we do now.
And our community was incorporated in 1978.
78.
And so that was only 10 years after its incorporation. So we're still a very, very young community. And but in looking at the development of healthcare facilities, it sort of ties in with the fifth task, which is elderly health care. And I see the fifth one, actually it's more like 2 in 1. It's elderly health care and emergency transportation programs. And, you know, what are the needs and available resources for our community regarding senior services? I know, you know, there are some. The senior program at the Multi-Gen Center is really meeting a great need, and they are working very hard.
There are a lot of participants.
Very
A lot of
many participants. And I think there's probably more people that could use it that may not be able to get there. And according to the 2020 general plan, again, quoting the general plan, the city's year-round senior population over age 65 accounts for 31.3% of the population, which is 15% higher than the state of Arizona and the United States. So we have a very senior population, and there will be a need for elderly health care, possibly the development of healthcare facilities to meet those needs. This statistic is not your winter visitors. This is the year-round.
The year-round.
And considering that the city population goes from about 39,000 to 70,000 in the winter.
Yes. Yeah, we're at 40,000 plus,
Okay.
and we jump to 80 in the
Mhm.
in the winter months.
So, and most of those are senior citizens who are coming down.
Yes.
So the percentage goes even higher.
Mhm.
So,
Right. Again, I just, want to caution you against, we are not a healthcare provider.
No.
We'll have to partner, and I'm believing that the emergency transportation may have come about because at the time, Apache Junction did not have a fire or emergency services. It's been contracted, and they may not have had the ability for emergency transportation
Mhm.
to the extent that we do have it now.
And, and this is something too, again, the city isn't, the fire district has taken on that responsibility and is contracting with, I think they have like 4 or 5, I wrote that down someplace here too.
Is this the ambulance
The
providers?
ambulance, right.
Because fire does not do ambulatory services. Out in Sun City West and Sun City, you can call specifically for just an ambulance without having the fire truck come. And maybe that would be a outreach program through Parks and Rec or through, with Heather Patel. And maybe this group here
Mhm.
is more of an outreach that, you don't have to call fire to get an ambulance.
Mhm.
The reason that they're separate is because fire does not carry any of the medications and drugs.
Right.
They are on the ambulance.
Right. And they have the Superstition Fire Medical District has 4 ambulances. 37 are 37 ambulance personnel. And last year, the number of responses in 2018 were 9,620. The number of ambulance transports was 5,068. So it's from the fire district. But again, I think things have changed since this was put together. Yeah, again, as you mentioned, that's why, talking about emergency transportation. And again, taking a look at it right now and seeing, well, what are the current needs for emergency transportation? Are we doing fine? Yeah. Does there need to be that combination of the fire district and private? That had been that way and it moved. I don't know the history of that. But again, I think we can take a look at, why is that on there? Does it still need to be on there?
Right. What was the purpose of it?
Right.
Go ahead,
This
Jan.
is
Jennifer.
this is Jennifer. I agree with Mary that a lot of this, it would be to our benefit, I believe, as a commission and for the community as a whole to really revisit where we are 30 some years later. So that's exciting. If that's a possibility, I think that would be really, really beneficial to the community.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And other outreach ideas, I think in order to look at some of the various needs within our community, the commission may be able to look at possibly forming committees. And that I think at future meetings we can discuss, depending upon what we identify as a direction we want to go. Some of the outreach needs, I know that one of the comments that I made at when we were having our funding meeting with the providers, I commented that there was a a program in California, I believe, that worked with elderly women for home sharing. And it met the needs of women who may have lost a spouse, are on a fixed income, aren't able to afford to stay in their own home, might end up homeless. And another woman who's over here has a similar situation, and having a nonprofit who would be willing to do the work, to do the matching, and do some of the legwork of identifying, are these two people going to be able to work well together in a shared living situation? Well, this idea sparked an interest in one of our grantees, and he is actually looking into that with another agency that would be willing to, the agency is in Mesa, but they would be looking at the East Valley being a clearinghouse for people that would like to do shared housing. So this is a future possibility for our area, would really meet a big need in our area for senior individuals who are at risk of losing their housing because they can't afford it.
Okay.
So, but again, I think there are many different possibilities that we could look at. Do we have other things that, as far as the, you're working on the actual 2-14, the code or the,
It's 2-14, which came from ordinance, was it 865? 659. 659. City attorney and I are working on that. We are concerned that we may not have enough time to get through it and adopt it by council before the requirements, but we are working towards that.
okay, that would be very helpful.
And then when he has that ready, we could report back as to what the changes were done in order to accommodate the removal of the word grant, because it's not a grant, the requirement for residency, and the reporting of financial statements and audit reports and things like that. And again, it would clear up some of these things under 211 as well. I mean, if we're going to do Health and Human Services, we might as well do it all. So I'll bring this back to him to see if he can recall the history. He's been here extremely long time, and maybe he has some history on this. Okay.
Okay, good. Jennifer, Charlene, do you have other comments or items that you would like to bring up?
I do not. Thank you.
I don't have anything.
Okay.
I think the biggest thing that we need to focus on is getting out there and getting what are the needs of the community.
Okay. At this point, I would like to ask the commission to consider designating a specific day of the month to potentially hold commission meetings. This would provide current and future commission members with a specific date and time for these meetings. Currently, the commission has been meeting, it's been the third Thursday of the month, which seems to work out for most people. And being able to call in when you're 1,000+ miles away is a benefit. And Jennifer, your voice sounds like you're in the room.
That's good. That's good. And I really appreciate it. I was so excited when the idea was proposed. So I appreciate that.
Good. Well, if we can consider having the third Thursday of the month, maybe 4:30 p.m. would accommodate schedules. Does that sound okay to both of you?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Up to you guys. You can choose a different day, but I'd have to double check versus
Availability.
scheduling. 4:30, 5 o'clock. City Hall closes at 6, so.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever, currently you guys get to set it. When the new commission members come in, they're stuck with your date and time. But at
Yeah.
least that way, you know, you can work around your schedule, you know when and where, you know when to be expecting an agenda, things like that. And we are working on getting all of the agendas and the materials in the city's webpage under the Granicus platform. So if you can't find my email or you accidentally deleted it, you can always go to the city's website and pull up the Health and Human Services agenda and the supporting documentation.
Okay,
So that's
good.
new as of this month.
Oh, that's
Great.
perfect.
Yeah,
That's
awesome.
great, and
Helps
and
with travel.
I love the idea of the third week, the Thursday that we've been doing, because I know in May when we had a couple dates, I came to a meeting that I thought we were having that we apparently weren't because nobody knew about it. I think it just would really help with getting things off the ground and being able to plan thoughtfully.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion?
Nope.
If not, is there a motion to establish the third Thursday of the month to hold the Health and Human Service Committee meetings and at 4:30?
I move that the Health and Human Services Commission set the third Thursday of every month as the regular meeting date and the regular meeting time at 4:30 p.m.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second that.
All right. All right. We will set that, we will post that as well, and then that way, if there is a cancellation, we just notice that it has been canceled, and that way we never have to constantly post our posting boards of your meeting notices. This becomes a statute set, defined, it's on the board, and if it cancels, we just make a notation of it.
Okay.
Thank
Do we
you
need to
very
vote?
much.
Much easier. No, she just seconded it.
Okay.
We're gonna vote.
We need to vote.
Yep.
Okay.
We do?
So,
Good.
Chairman Erickson,
Yes.
Charlene,
Yes.
thank you. Jennifer?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. So item number, is it 6 or 7, was kind of just verifying the dates, if you needed to.
Okay, and you have two of the calendars?
Yeah, this is this year and
So
next
the-
year.
The third Thursday in September is the 19th.
Okay,
October is October 17th. November 21st.
okay.
And December 19th. And I think depending upon
That's
how
fine.
much we have going on, we might be able to, you know,
Consolidate,
consolidate
and we, yeah, very
over the
true,
holidays.
very true, very true. I do know that there will be, and I know this isn't on the agenda, but we are receiving applications. It's the time of year for board and commission applications. I will let the board know that Cal has sent an email in that he is looking to resign. I asked him to submit his resignation, and we do have another applicant for the Health and Human Services Commission. We'll be conducting interviews, well, council will conduct interviews and then appoint, and we should be ready by October.
Okay, good.
Apologies, I don't have that schedule with me.
Mm, mhm. Okay, we need to, let's see, the next item is to determine future meetings, agenda items, and, you know, as far as our next meeting, which would be September
19th.
19th.
Mhm.
I think the commission's given me direction, and I will type up the minutes and send them out to you.
Okay,
And based on that, you can let me know what your agenda items will be for the following meeting,
okay.
if that will
And
be.
if each one of you have items, you know, we can maybe start, you know, submit them to me.
Yeah.
And then we'll,
Yeah.
we'll put the agenda together. Okay. Well, I thank everyone.
Okay.
And with that, I would adjourn the meeting.
Okay, meeting adjourned at 5:20 PM. Thank you,
Thank you.
Jen.
Thank you so much. You guys have a great rest of your week.
You too.